Who is the worst attention you've come across? Sister-in-law. At our wedding she did everything she could to steal attention away from her sister, my wife. She wore a dress that she'd had altered to be both low-cut and short-skirted. Then when no one was paying her attention kept accidentally dropping things so she would bend over to pick them up. When her dad remarried she was telling people at the ceremony that she had cancer, but had come to terms with it. She didn't have cancer. I went to a costume wedding once. One woman, not the bride, wore her own wedding dress and claimed she was the bride of Chucky. My fiance has been my best friend since we were kids. Once, in high school, he was dating a girl who decided that after scaring the crap out of him by trying to cuff him to the bed against his will, she was going to threaten to kill herself if he dumped her. About 10 years later I ran into her at a party. She was there with her husband and infant son. Not the kind of party you take a baby to, but okay. She proceeded to tell me how they never technically broke up since being 15 years old. His answer to "if you dump me I'll kill myself" was to just stop talking to her, and because of that, they were technically still together and she was cheating on him with her husband, making her son a bastard. She was 100% serious, and she also told me to tell him she wanted an apology. This was in front of a lot of very stunned people. Man, I feel bad for her husband. My roommate's cat died last week. When she told her co-workers, one lady proceeded to start telling a story about a cat she kinda owned that never even lived with her that died 5+ years ago. She got so worked up that she started crying and the entire office started consoling the co-worker instead of my roommate whose cat had died the day before. Unbelievable. This lady needs a serious dose of go fuck yourself Errol. My grandma has to make everything about her. Literally everything. No matter the person or situation. And if the convo switches to where it's not about her, she gets visibly annoyed and you can see the gears turning in her head as she tries to figure out how to get the conversation back onto her. She constantly retells stories she's already told 1,000 times back from when she was younger if she can't think of anything recent. If I have to ever again hear about how she was prom queen back in 1951, or valedictorian of her 10-person 8th grade class, or how whenever she goes anywhere, everyone just loves her, she literally says, and you know, they just love me all the time, I'm gonna lose it. I knew a girl in college whose father died at least 6 times over the span of one semester. Like, we would be hanging out, and then she gets a call, and then she drops the phone, her eyes go red, and the waterworks start. There's a girl in my college classes who claims her dad owns a huge soccer team but doesn't know the name. She's dating one of the LA Lakers but can't give his name out. But she is also talking to someone who's in the NFL to keep her options open. She says her dad works at a local steel factory and has no idea where his extra money comes from because he gives her hush money, then called another girl out in class for lying to fit in. There was a girl who used to be part of this group of friends that I saw on the odd occasion when I was a teen. I only met her twice, but on both occasions she started to full on sing super loud whenever everybody else was talking and she was not involved in the conversation. I knew a woman who was similar. She was actually a pretty good singer. Problem was, it went to her head and she sang in everybody's face after announcing what a good singer she was. Annoying. There was this British TV show about bad moms and one of them made her daughter dress way older than she looked. Daughter wanted to wear a t-shirt and jeans to go out to eat. Mom made her wear tights, mini skirt, boots, tight tee, sleeveless overcoat, and a boatload of jewelry. Kid basically looked like she was in a Disney show and would make her daughter randomly sing and do her cheer routine in public because you never know who's watching. People get discovered on the streets every day. The little blonde girl, I felt so bad. Back in early elementary school during art I used to talk crap about my own art to get a lot of compliments from other students. My teacher noticed it and told me to stop. I once did that and my friend was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. It sucks," and I felt so betrayed. There was a girl in my college that constantly would say crap. During orientation she told people she was recovering from brain cancer. Didn't happen. And was partially deaf. She wasn't. She then found out my friend had epilepsy, so she started doing these exaggerated tremors. She then would fake seizures all the time for all the years she was there, which was a pain in the butt because I would have to treat them like real ones. She did it once during a power outage for the most attention possible. She did it so often that once 911 hung up on someone calling it in because they knew it was her. Since I keep getting comments about 911 hanging up, I feel like I should mention that the person who called was also a dispatcher. Sounds like a pathological liar. Girl in college would constantly try to get attention. Oh, my boyfriend dumped me. My new guy beats me. I am gay. I am not gay. I own a signed Kurt Cobain bass guitar, but by far the worst one. I was violated and the guy got sent to prison. Gave people a paper cutout of a debauchery case, but it looked odd. So I tracked it down using the Google and found she had altered it and it was some other girl. We all cut ties with her after that. Freaking psycho. Kurt Cobain bass guitar. My high school ex posted a picture of a knife to his wrist on Twitter after I broke up with him for cheating on me and being pathological liar. He told everyone to message me and to talk to him. I cut off all contact, or he was going to kill himself. I hate that I was young and dumb, so it worked and we ended up back together. I once had a guy do that, but we'd been on like 3 dates. Called the cops on his pathetic butt. He got all upset with me because his parents got angry with him, lol. But I totally understand the young and dumb part, especially if you once cared about this dude and you don't want to see him in pain. A lady that I work with is the biggest one-upper I have ever met. In April I had major surgery to remove half of my digestive system and was given a lot of attention from our concerned co-workers. She was not happy because she wasn't the center of attention anymore. Well, she found out she needed to have a DNC, outpatient procedure to cauterize her uterus, and you're awake for the whole thing. She came into work, she decided to milk it for all she could, and when she came into work the next day she was distraught over the fact no one came to check up on her the night before and wouldn't talk about anything but her recovery. By the end of the week she was telling people she was recovering from cancer surgery. In fact, she still complains that she is recovering from it, and this happened back in April. She also told me, unsolicited of course, that the reason she didn't come see me while I was in the hospital was because her mom had died in a hospital 13 years ago and she is still grieving, and going to a hospital would make her grieving process start all over again. I actually feel bad for her. Oh, I know a bigger one-upper than that. Alright, in high school, my buddy was banging this girl who told everyone she got shot. I asked her to see the bullet wound and she pulled her shirt down a little so I could see her shoulder. You know what was freaking covering her wound? One single ace band-aid. Bonus story. So she told my buddy he got her pregnant. Condom did rip. So believable. She told him she wanted an abortion and needed $60 for it. He gave it to her, but I asked her how she was going to get it for $60. She said she was going to the hospital with a fake kid. I forgot the worst of all. She was a loud and proud juggalette. She got a shot. You know those vaccines are as bad as bullets. I went to uni with her, in no particular order. She was violated repeatedly by an ex-boyfriend who kept on breaking into her room at night. When we reported it to campus security, they never saw anyone enter her room on security cameras. Same ex carved S into her chest with a knife. Never saw any scarring or evidence of any sort. Same ex spray painted S onto the outside of her window. She lived on the 4th floor of a tower block. Whilst traveling back home for Christmas she fell over, knocked herself out, came to in the hospital, was discharged and beat the train home she missed because of being knocked out. That particular train journey takes 3 hours. Whilst at home for Christmas her dad kept on taking LSD and asking her to drive him to places in his van, even though she's never had a driving lesson, was ran over repeatedly by a mutual friend. She just walked into his car, claimed to be the biggest drug dealer on campus, but no one ever once saw her stash. Can speak 7 languages fluently, but she can never remember which languages they are. There are so many of these. It was really sad and pathetic. That last one made me laugh. Got 2 gems. 1. A high school friend. When his girlfriend talked about ending the relationship, he sent her a picture of him pointing his dad's gun to his head saying the typical "if you leave I'll kill myself," and he always pulled that sort of drama antics. 2. High school graduation party at hotel. They gave out sparkling wine without alcohol. I saw peeps chugging down glasses and then acting like they were really drunk. There was no bar or alcohol included in the party. In hindsight, they were cringy as frick. My 2 ex-friends. They dated in high school, were forced to split because she was legal age, 19, and he was 15. Got back together and just made a bunch of bad choices together. Engaged after a month. And just constantly crying for attention. Everything he cooks, microwaves, goes on to Facebook and Snapchat with annoying voiceovers of her going out of the office so good. Constant posts of oh my god I love my baby so much with lovey-dovey photos of them. But they fight and break up more than anyone I have ever known. If he pee her off she text me a picture of her engagement ring being taken off. They thought a friend Snapchatting a picture outside of their house and not going to see them meant he had to be planning on killing himself. Proceeded to spam all their mutuals with panicked messages until they found out it was basically just a hey look I was in your town pic. Not only are they attention W but just a total hot mess altogether. A little touchy but here goes nothing. My brother was in a toxic relationship. He was physically and mentally being abused. Not physically, he did manage to get his abusive girlfriend pregnant. It got to a point where he was actually crying because he just needed to come home with me to our mom. That was the last straw for me so I said frick it, come with me. So he grabbed his stuff, and we literally ran from her. She was throwing his stuff out the door and screaming. We kept running. But, then she yelled, if you don't come back right now, I'm going to stick a knife in my pregnant belly. I wish I was making this up. We of course ran back to prevent this. So yeah, that. This girl in 8th grade claimed she was depressed and suicidal. She was popular so everyone believed her and felt bad for her. She got all kinds of attention for it. There was this kid in the same grade who was actually depressed and he tried hanging himself on a doorknob in the back of our class when no one was looking one day and in an odd way he became popular after because of it. She decided to do the same one day in class except no one noticed her doing it until she was passed out and had to go to the emergency room. Okay, I think we found the winner here. There was a chick in my high school who faked pregnancy, claimed to do drugs in the restroom with her drug buddies, and then told people I was the father. I never had fricked her because I kind of had the gay. This kid who's chilled out by now and I'm good friends with once was a huge attention W. One day he walked up to our table while we were peacefully playing Smash and pulled out one of those rolls of minty tape. That's what I call them. Meant to make your breath minty and says, I'm eating this whole roll and none of you are ever gonna stop me god dang it and so we didn't. Absolute mad lad. In my sophomore year of high school I briefly dated, then had an on again off again friendship with this senior in my drama class. We'll call him T.I., as in the idiot. T.I. was awesome when we first met. He told a lot of cool stories and seemed to have an interesting life. He was a little weird, but the fun kind of weird, and very socially savvy, so he was generally well liked by a lot of the class. Over time, however, I could tell T.I. was a little off. His stories started to seem a little outlandish. For example, how Katy Perry and Ariana Grande kissed him on each cheek at the same time. How he survived a 30-foot fall from a treetop into a large hole after being unconscious for hours. How he had a fake girlfriend, confirmed to be fake, that he dumped just so he could date me, and other unbelievable stuff like that. Something just wasn't right about this guy. The most attention W thing T.I. ever did was tell our entire class that he had some fatal disease that required surgery, from which he was probably going to die. We weren't dating anymore and in an on phase of our friendship at this point BTW. He even went as far as saying goodbyes and offering to sell his stuff. Honestly, I could tell that this was probably bulls. He didn't know what this disease was, except a tumor up near his, and I quote, you know what, and just cause he was a compulsive liar in general. But those who didn't know him as well as I did fell for it. One girl even had to go to counseling because she was so worried about him. He told us this the Thursday before a week-long Thanksgiving break, and that his surgery was the next Tuesday, and if we didn't hear from him by that night, he'd be dead. So I texted him Tuesday night. No response. I texted him on Thursday wishing him a happy Thanksgiving. Nothing. At this point, I actually started to get a little worried. What if something did happen to him? But there he was on Monday, back at school, totally fine, not in a wheelchair or crutches, or even limping. Yeah, I bitched him out on it pretty hard. TLDR. Psycho friend made up a fake fatal illness and worried our classmates' friends for days for the sole purpose of getting attention. This girl I knew was the literal definition of attention seeking. She would always show off and always have to mention how much money and influence she and her family had, and then in the same breath would try to convince you she was from the hood. She wasn't. She was literally from the richest area in my city where higher level politicians and famous people live. She would constantly be extremely dramatic and say really disgusting things to get a rise out of people. She'd make really outlandish comments about different races, religions, poor people, the homeless, etc. She voted for Trump simply because she wanted to get a reaction from people. She was the kind of person who needed to one-up literally everyone. If you had a chronic illness, so did she, and it was so much worse than yours. Bad upbringing? Hers was worse. A tragic loss? Nothing compared to what she went through. Had some incredible news? Sucks to suck because hers was better. Her roommate was having some serious mental health issues and she somehow managed to make it about her and her safety and vilify the poor girl instead of actively helping her seek treatment. She would get drunk and act like a crazy fool, flailing her arms and being loud and physical just so people would watch her. She'd make out with all our mutuals, who'd she refer to as her sons. Gross. Just to stir up drama. She would steal things from people's houses at a party, put it on Snapchat, and then when she was caught would delete it and act like it never happened and then play the victim. She lied to everyone about hooking up with a mutual friend of ours. She's lost a lot of friends in the past year or two, myself included, because we can't deal with her dramatics and attention-seeking ways anymore. I'm trying to be as non-descriptive as I can because a lot of the things she did are very specific, but this is just some of the stuff she's done. If I listed everything, we'd be here all day. I have the time to read more about this girl. My ex's niece, who still lived at home with her parents, pretended she was pregnant at 16. The really freaked up part was that her stomach grew for the full 9 months of her pregnancy. She told everyone that she was uncomfortable with anyone touching her stomach, and as she was happy to wear tight clothes that would accentuate her bump, she had everyone convinced the pregnancy was real. Her parents ended up spending a fortune buying a pram, cot, and clothes, etc. Eventually, when the baby didn't appear and her parents discovered the truth, they just never mentioned the pregnancy or baby ever again to anyone. I'm sure they went ape crap at her behind closed doors, but she effectively got away with it because no one else either within or out with the family ever mentioned it again to her. For whatever stupid reason, one day shortly after her supposed due date, I went round to visit her when her parents were at work. I asked her where the baby was. After initially looking at me sheepishly and ascertaining that I hadn't heard anything from my mother-in-law, her gran, she went on to tell me this elaborate story about how her waters broke on the living room couch, that her mom rushed her to hospital, and after a long labor she gave birth to her son. Can't remember what she called this figment of her imagination. Anyway, she went on to tell me that he was in hospital being monitored as he was a little small, but he was doing well and she visited him every day. I didn't, still don't, like confrontation, so I never called her out on her balls and never revisited that conversation again. And nor did she. She really ought to have been in some form of counseling, as no one in their right mind would ever do something even remotely similar to that, but she never did. She grew up and went on to have 4 real pregnancies, but has never worked a day in her life and is altogether a pretty shite ma'am. I had a girl in my class which kept telling lies to make her seem more badass or that she would be living the best life. She always told everybody that she was living on top of a mountain and had to go like 5 kilometers to school every morning by foot. I was actually friends with her, so I went to her house once and she was living in an apartment which was in an alleyway filled with drunkards. She also said that she was part of some group that were basically freelancers and that she would do life-threatening tasks every day. But she also said that it would have to stay a secret, even though she basically just screamed it around the whole school. Overall, her stories about that group had so many cliches, like that they had a member which was a 12-year-old, which went freaking berserk every time he saw blood because his parents were killed in front of him, and that they had some 12-year-old scientist, which apparently built some sort of gun that they'd use on the berserk kid to calm him down. She also said that she had a rival or something because apparently she kept getting followed by a dude that knew her code name, but every time she chased him he would apparently jump on a freaking roof and run off. The stories also had a lot of logic failures. She once told that the group was building gliders for forest missions to jump from tree to tree easier, even though the gliders would be way too wide and they'd just break the wings because it would collide with every possible tree. Once she also told us that the group would have a 12-year-old member that for some reason had access to guns and that he shot a fist-sized hole through her wrist during a training session. She apparently didn't even get medical treatment but instead just put a bandage around half of her arm. But in school she was able to move her arm completely normal and there were never any traces of a wound, not even some blood or something. So nobody ever believed her and she became the most hated of the class. At the end of the year she had to leave the school because her grades were too bad and she kept telling that it was just because of French and that she would have the best grades of everybody. Even though the truth was that she had a D in almost every class and even multiple E, which can make you leave the school. And here in Germany, by the way, she was also just 12 years old. Sounds like she watched too much anime. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.